Welcome to the Fix Harare podcast, brought to you by Harare News. My name is Tawanda Mudzonga. I'm the editor of Harare News. Joining me again today is the managing editor of Harare News, Henry Munangatire.
Hey Tawanda, it's great to be back.
This week we're going to talk about water. Do you have water coming out of your tap? For many Harare residents, it has been years, decades even, since they have seen clean, drinkable water coming out of the taps in their homes. Today we have invited Hardlife Mudzingwa, the founder of the Community Water Alliance, to help explain why. Welcome to the Fix Harare podcast, Mr. Mudzingwa.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to listeners.
Today we're going to be talking about water in Harare. Can you start off by explaining to us how water delivery, sanitation, and hygiene have collapsed in Harare?
Okay, thanks very much for hosting me. The collapse of water sector in Harare, is water sanitation and hygiene, is not an overnight event. It transcends years. Going back to late 90s to the current situation that we have. So I think to just give you a background, we have two water treatment plants in Harare, which is Morton Jeffrey and Prince Edward water treatment works. And when these two were designed, they were meant to cater for a limited number of people. And we have had an increase in population since the day these two water treatment plants were commissioned. So on a daily basis, when the two water treatment plants are operating at full throttle, they can produce 704 megaliters per day. Whilst demand on a daily basis, that is the amount of water that is required to meet customer expectation or citizens' expectation at household level, is 1,200 megaliters per day. And production at the moment within the city stands at 400 megaliters per day. That means the two water treatment plants are not operating at full throttle. They are managing to produce 400 megaliters per day only. And of that 400 megaliters per day, 40% is physical losses. That is water that is lost through leakages because of obsolete and dilapidated water pipes that we have in the distribution system of the local authority. So that means almost half of what is being produced is reaching residents, which is around 200 megaliters per day. So what it means is that we are not managing to meet that expectation. I will zero in later to the root causes. But I think the other issue also why we have had this challenge on escalating population is that City of Harare Water Department provides water not only to citizens within City of Harare, they also provide water to citizens in Norton, citizens in Chitungwiza, citizens in Epworth, citizens in Rua, citizens in the new sprouting settlements of Rimba West, where the Red Ridge area, and also new sprouting areas around Dombosha. So demand has been very high, and that is part of what has contributed to that. And then the situation in terms of sanitation, we have functioning two sewer treatment plants within City of Harare, which is Fail Sewer Treatment Plant and Cobra Sewer Treatment Plant. And these ones are not functioning as per expectation in terms of purification of wastewater. So for Cobra, majority of the waste that is being produced there is deposited directly into the streams that feed into the lake. And the same with Chitungwiza municipality, which is the third sewer treatment plant within the metropolitan province. It is contributing heavily in terms of contamination of water resources within the city. So that has pushed the cost of purification of water within the city. That's why you see that the city is requiring around 10 to 12 chemicals to purify water. So beyond them, we also do have urban agriculture that is being practiced mainly on wetlands, and the fertilizers that are being used there and chemicals are washed downstream, and they ultimately find their way into Lake Chuero, where water will be abstracted before treatment and distribution to our citizens. So industries also playing a contributor role in terms of contaminating raw water sources within the metropolitan province. And we have all these challenges because of the site of the city. The city is situated upstream of its water source. So all the pollution that happens upstream finds its way downstream. And on sanitation systems, we also do have challenges on obsolete infrastructure. That's why we have serious leakages on best sewer pipes within suburbs, mainly high-density suburbs, Glenview, Budiriro, Mavuku, Tafara, Heathcliff. You see, we've had numerous cases of best sewer pipes within the city because of the obsolete infrastructure that I've talked about, which has contributed to, in some cases, diarrhea cases. In the past, we had cholera cases, and last year we had typhoid cases because of these challenges. Why are we experiencing these challenges? Number one, like I've said, the infrastructure that we have is old and dilapidated. So we did not have meaningful investment around the infrastructure dealing with water and sanitation. So just like what was echoed by the previous mayor for Harare, Councillor Mafume, water is using its memory to travel to places where it is supposed to be accessed. It's no longer about pipes. They are old and dilapidated. So we have obsolete infrastructure on the distribution system.
How is the Community Water Alliance working with residents to address the lack of water, sanitation, and hygiene in Harare?
Okay. The first one, in terms of the work that we are doing, working with citizens, is to compel duty bearers to, fulfill, respect, and protect their obligation. And we've done that through several advocacy initiatives that include dialogue sessions, engagements, and in some cases where we fail to agree, litigation, to compel them to implement their constitutional mandate. So that's the first one that we're doing. Of course, beyond that, we also complement water service delivery through, like I've said, drilling of solar-powered boreholes within communities to increase access and amount of water available for citizens. And we do so together with our partners, UNICEF included, and Oxfam and GIZ to complement water service delivery within suburbs.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you, what can we do as residents to help fix the water situation in Harare?
Yeah, for citizens, they are supposed to participate. Participation is very important. Participation in the budget formulation, implementation stages. So if we don't have anything in terms of meaningful allocation to water and sanitation within the budget, both at local authority level and at national level, you won't, get miracles when it comes to, water at the tap. So the voice of citizens through, constructive citizen engagement in the agents should be seen. Citizens need to, ensure that they speak authoritatively and decisively on issues of access to water when it comes to allocation within the national budget during the times when Honorable Mtuli present the budget, as well as at local authority level. There is need to engage the city of Harare to improve their allocation to water and sanitation. But beyond that, citizens need also to pay for services. Where water services have been provided, payment is part of the solution to the challenges at hand. So payment is required. So urgency is required also, and compelling duty bearers at local level, not visiting Parliament during these times of COVID-19 pandemic, where we have restrictions in terms of movement and organize. You can engage your local policymakers, councillors at local level, legislators at local level, and make use of virtual space platforms and social media platforms to raise the voice on access to water sanitation.
Okay, thank you. My final question is that Harare City Council has a vision to turn Harare into a world-class city by the year 2025. Obviously, part of this would include the provision of clean water for all of Harare's residents. Do you still think that that's possible?
When they shared that dream at first, we challenged them. And we were not convinced that that dream will be realized. And we are now in 2021, 4 years down the line. Like I've said, remember the statistics that I've given you in terms of the two water treatment plants that we have. If they are operating at full throttle, they produce 704, whilst demand is 1,000. At the moment, it's 1,200. In 2025, it will be 1,400 megaliters per day demand. That's the projected demand. So I don't see them managing to fulfill that dream. And we also look at budget allocations at national level and the commitments that have been made at national level and local authority level in terms of the finances that are being availed. On our part, we don't think they will fulfill that dream in the water sector.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Mudzingwa. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thanks.
Joining me now is the managing editor of Harare News, Henry Munangatire. Hey, Henry. So that was Mr. Mudzingwa from Community Water Alliance, really giving us all the background information we need to know about why Harare is in the position it is today about water. What's your take? What do you think?
Very interesting conversation. I think, there are a number of issues that immediately come to mind. So the first issue is we've got an issue of aging infrastructure and lack of capacity to produce water. And that is evidenced by the fact that Morton Jeffrey Waterworks, which was built between 1952, initially built in 1952 at the same time as Lake Chiwero, and also built sections of it because it's got three parts of it. So another section was built in 1994. This infrastructure is aging. Morton Jeffrey produces 614 megaliters, whilst Prince Edward Waterworks produces 90, which is the total of 704 megaliters he spoke about. However, that's still not enough. We need 1,200. And according to even what Mr. Mudzingwa mentioned, by 2025, we'll need 1,400. So we've got an issue of infrastructure. And that's on top of the fact that 50% of the water that's actually purified on a good day is lost through distribution. So only less than half of the water gets to residents in real time. That's a massive issue. I mean, that's the first issue. The second issue that came out as I was listening is that we've got an actual environmental catastrophe in the city that's affecting water treatment and water delivery. So if you notice, he spoke about how the city needs a cocktail of 12 chemicals to purify water. And that's because, raw sewage is going back into Lake Chiwero and into the city's water source. So that costs way more money to purify that water. On top of that, human activities such as agriculture and cultivation of wetlands, which we know is a big thing in Harare. There's maize at this time of the year. There's maize growing on every wetland. People building the wetlands, and wetlands work to recharge the water system to naturally purify the water and the water bodies. So, and that's an issue. So, beyond that, the lack of sewage treatment, cultivation, those are now causing serious environmental issues, which are now requiring us to build new dams. On the cards right now is Kundri Dam, which is 70 kilometers northeast of Harare, the Goromons area. And Kundri Dam is supposed to add another 250 megaliters per day to the city's supply. But again, at the cost that it's being built, at a massive cost, I think the total cost is around 600 million. But even at that, we still won't have enough water when that dam's complete. So there are a number of issues. There's a capacity issue, there's an infrastructure issue, and then there's an environmental issue. But on top of that, I think that the issue that sort of underpins all of that is a massive governance issue at local and national level. The situation of water is not a new issue. As we've heard, this has been happening. This has been unraveling since the 90s. But nobody did anything about it. Nobody did anything to increase the capacity of our water treatment. Nobody did anything. I mean, Kundri Dam itself has been on the cards since the 80s and 90s. But it's only getting built now in 2020. So you see, there's a massive governance issue that's probably caused by economic issues, political issues, and these are the issues that we find ourselves not having enough water. And what's worse is we don't have a plan until when there will be enough water. And undergirding all of this, I think it's important to say that water in Zimbabwe is a constitutional right. According to Section 77A of the Constitution, the right to water is a human right. And, you know, what does it mean to have a right to water? Well, you know, it means that the water must be available, it must be good quality, so it must be safe, it must be accessible. It means you may have to be able to get it. Having water available in a lake that's 50 kilometers away is not helpful to us. It has to be available in your tap, in your home, for your children to use. In fact, it's almost like saying, you know, you look at all the rights of human beings and everything we have. Nothing else we can achieve as humanity. No other rights are possible without the right to water. So this is why this water is so fundamental, because we can't talk of the right to food, education, healthcare. How can we have the right to healthcare? How can healthcare be achieved, or education for children, or even adequate housing? You know, all those things are undergirded, or even things like nutrition. They're all undergirded by the right to clean water. You know, so I think this is a very fundamental issue. And it's something that we should take seriously, and our government should address. It's their responsibility. It's the responsibility of government at local and national level to ensure that every resident of Harare and citizen of Zimbabwe has water.
Absolutely, Henry. I mean, we have a whole generation now that's growing up, and some have never seen water come out of their taps. I think it's a tragedy, and, you know, beyond the practicality, there's a huge sense of failure here. There's been a failure to provide water to everybody, regardless of where you live. And I think that issue is seriously something that needs to be seriously addressed.
I mean, absolutely. I think that's the biggest issue that you look at, is that there's no bigger statement that screams failure of local governance and national governments in Zimbabwe, such as water. And it's one of the issues that's not spoken about, because I think part of our national psyche is that we've gotten on and moved on, and now we have boreholes in communities, which again are a massive problem, because you have women and children spending the greater part of their day queuing up for water. That already is a massive infringement on the rights of children and women. So I think, you know, summing up everything, you see that we've got to deal with the infrastructure. The city's got to think way beyond 20, 30 years. There needs to be a city water plan that goes into the future, maybe more. I mean, we're now in the age of climate change and sustainability. So one of the big things is, whilst we've had a good rainy season this year, you know, that doesn't mean that next year we're guaranteed to have the same rains, or the year after, or the year after. In fact, Zimbabwe is located in a zone of high rainfall variability, which means that we're going to have extreme weather patterns and weather events, cyclones, and years of good rain, years of drought. So we need to think beyond. We can't afford to be losing 50% of our water burst on the street. That's a waste. It's a waste of the chemicals that people have paid for Residents have paid for these chemicals. That's a waste. The city is spending $3 million a month on water treatment chemicals. So in other words, we're saying that half of that money that we've spent is lost, is wasted on the streets. That's crazy. That needs to be sorted out. The next thing, obviously, is we need to deal with greater environmental enforcement and legislation. Unfortunately, yes, we're living in very difficult times, and people need to cultivate food and all sorts of things, but it has to be done in an orderly manner. It can't be done everywhere, and it can't be done to an extent that it's going to cost us more money to fix that problem, which is what's happening now. And then beyond that, we need to governance in the city has to improve. It has to improve. We have to have better governance, governance that understands that water is a human right. It has to be available. It has to be good quality and safe, and it has to be accessible to everybody. This is not something that we're coming up with here. This is something in our constitution, in the constitution of the country, the constitution of Zimbabwe, Section 77A. Water is a basic human right. Beyond that, the United Nations has ruled in 2010 and made a resolution that water is a human right. And, even going beyond that, it's a sustainable development goal. It's a global goal of the world for everybody to have access to clean water and sanitation. So I think, having made those points, I think it's important that the issue of water is something we take up seriously as a media community and as residents.
Absolutely, Henry. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks, Tawanda, and have a good week.
We've come to the end of this episode of the Fix Harare podcast, brought to you by Harare News. Please look out for the next episode, which will be available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor, as well as on Facebook and Twitter on our handle @Harare News. You can also send the message JOIN to 0786 580 574 to subscribe to receive the Fix Harare podcast via WhatsApp. Until next week, goodbye from us here at the Fix Harare podcast.